to highlight some of the therapy models for speech, cognition or thinking skills, and swallowing. So first of all, Parkinson's disease has 4 main symptoms: resting tremor, slowness of movement, impaired balance, and rigidity or stiffness. Many people assume that weakness is a core symptom of Parkinson's, but it's not. Weakness happens because movements get smaller and muscles aren't being used to their full capacity. So let's talk a little bit more about this. So again, why do muscles weaken? Because Parkinson's causes smaller walking, smaller writing, and even a smaller, quieter voice. So the muscles themselves aren't attacked, but they weaken if not fully used. So for example, taking tiny steps over time weakens leg muscles because they're not being used to their full capacity. So now I'd like to take a moment to discuss the diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. Neurologists diagnose Parkinson's through case history and neurological exams like a finger to nose test, looking at hand movements, walking, sitting to standing, and they look for at least 2 of those 4 cardinal symptoms that we discussed. When a neurologist is going through this process, they'll also ask for scans like CTs, MRIs, and blood work to rule out other conditions that may also be causing symptoms. And then a DAT scan can be used to measure dopamine levels in the brain's cells or neurons. And by the time someone is diagnosed with Parkinson's, 60 to 80% of the dopamine producing cells in the brain are already lost. By the way, a CT is computed tomography, an MRI is magnetic resonance imaging, and a DAT scan is a dopamine transporter. It's the focus of a nuclear imaging test. And again, these are all brain imaging scans that can help to determine the diagnosis for Parkinson's. So in terms of what causes Parkinson's, it occurs when those neurons, the brain cells that are responsible for producing dopamine, die or become impaired. And the exact cause of that isn't fully known or understood. So genetics, environmental factors like pesticides likely play a role, but research is ongoing into this area as to the cause of Parkinson's. So now let's talk about dopamine's role and the role that it plays in living with Parkinson's. So dopamine is a neurotransmitter, meaning it transmits signals between brain cells that help plan and control automatic movements. So for example, walking, talking, swallowing, or even buckling a seatbelt are all examples of automatic movements. So without enough dopamine, these automatic actions can break down with Parkinson's. So let's dive deeper now into my field, speech, cognition, and swallowing. Speech and language are, again, normally automatic. We adjust volume without thinking about it. We're louder in restaurants and softer in libraries and schools, for example. But people with Parkinson's particularly struggle to regulate their volume. So sometimes they think they're loud enough when they're not. And breath support can also break down with Parkinson's, where people with PD may trail off mid-sentence. Their voice quality can become hoarse or strained, and intonation or cadence and rhythm of speech can become impaired. So speech changes are very common with Parkinson's, and in fact, 90% of people with Parkinson's will develop speech disorders. So the same muscles that are used for speaking are also used for swallowing. That's the connection. People are often surprised to learn that speech therapists work in the realm of swallowing, but the same muscles are used for both. So speech changes like a softer voice, being monotone, lots of throat clearing, These can all be early warning signs of swallowing problems. And examples of swallowing problems can include things like drooling, coughing while eating or drinking, food or pills feeling stuck, and weight loss. And these problems can also lead to increased risks for choking and for food or drink going into the airway, which is also called aspiration. And aspiration can lead to pneumonia. So it's very important to address these issues because these issues can be treated and worked on if detected early. So Parkinson's is often thought of just as a movement disorder, but it can also affect cognition or our abilities to think, plan, and remember. So people with Parkinson's might notice that it takes longer to process information. They have difficulty with multitasking or increased forgetfulness. And all of these types of challenges can impact communication, relationships, and independence for everyday tasks. Okay, let's talk about the role of intent. So the role of intent in addressing the impacts of Parkinson's we've discussed. Very important to understand that humans have two motor systems, the automatic and the intentional motor systems. And we'll take a look at a diagram on the next slide. The intentional motor system is less dopamine dependent, whereas that automatic motor system is dependent on dopamine. So this means that people with Parkinson's can regain movement control when they use intent by being deliberate and focused and engaging the intentional motor system. So let's talk more about the science behind that. So on the left, we have the automatic or extrapyramidal system, and on the right, we have the intentional or pyramidal system in the brain. So the automatic motor system is the extrapyramidal system, and the intentional motor system is the pyramidal system. So Parkinson's, again, is a disorder of the extrapyramidal or automatic system on the left, and it results in degeneration or breakdown of the substantia nigra. It's part of the basal ganglia in the midbrain, and the substantia nigra is responsible for producing dopamine. Parkinson's does not affect the pyramidal system, pictured on the right, the intentional system of the brain. The pyramidal system on the right controls voluntary movements directly from the brain to the spinal cord, bypassing, as you can see in blue, bypassing the damaged substantia nigra. So again, people with Parkinson's can regain movement control when they use intent and engage this pyramidal or intentional motor system, bypassing the damaged substantia nigra. So by engaging this intentional motor system with intent, people with Parkinson's can walk better, talk clearer, swallow safely, write larger, and even buckle their seatbelts. Again, intent is the key strategy to managing Parkinson's. So there are many types of therapies that address this need for intentional movement for people with Parkinson's, including physical and speech therapy models. One is the speak out therapy model, and it is a modality from the Parkinson's Voice Project, a nonprofit based in Texas. And the speak out therapy model trains people with Parkinson's to convert speech from automatic to intentional. And it's designed to strengthen both the muscles for speaking and swallowing. And we'll look at more about this therapy model. It includes an evaluation, one-on-one therapy with tools and exercises, group sessions, and daily home practice. There are even free daily YouTube videos to practice along with. They're published every day by the Parkinson's Voice Project. They're themed, they're different every day. It's a wonderful resource. And this ongoing cycle, is called the circle of intent. We'll see that illustrated here on the next slide. So this is the 7-step circle of intent, an illustration of this ongoing approach in the Speak Out therapy program for people with Parkinson's, but it's also a good general model to maintain intent. So again, Speak Out starts with an evaluation in step 1 there, and then people who choose to participate receive a free booklet and digital flashcards, and then watch a video to learn more. Good news, if you've watched this presentation, you already have that information. And then after that, people do 8 to 10 sessions of individual Speak Out therapy, along with ongoing daily home practice. And once they've started with that, they can participate in free weekly Speak Out therapy groups. And then after those initial 8 to 10 sessions, people continue with daily home practice, weekly groups, and one-on-one refresher sessions as needed with their speech therapist. So throughout every step of the program and ongoing, number 7, daily home practice is key. And this is designed to be an ongoing program that a participant continues with and an ongoing to be able to maintain the progress that is made. So Speak Out or other types of speech therapy for Parkinson's do more than help people make their speech louder and clearer. Because it requires patients to think with intent, it also is exercising components of cognition like attention and memory at the same time. So these exercises are purposefully designed to address cognition or thinking skills in addition to speech in order to improve everyday thinking skills as well. And this can help people with Parkinson's not only communicate better, but also to sharpen memory and focus and stay more mentally engaged. So in fact, with these types of programs, many people report improvements in both their speech and in their overall cognitive function. So there are 2 key challenges or barriers to people with Parkinson's seeking treatment. First is a sensory deficit. So people with PD feel like their movements, their memory, their voice volume are normal when they're not. It's a perception, sensory deficit perception thing. And this can delay treatment if we're not aware that there is an issue. So second is motivation. So Parkinson's and the loss of dopamine also affects motivation. People know they can improve, and this next part is true for all of us probably. People know they can improve with exercise, but struggle to stay motivated. So this is even more important with Parkinson's because, like we talked about earlier, the weakness is not a core symptom of Parkinson's. It's a result of not using or underuse of the muscles. So Parkinson's is a movement disorder that's battled by moving. So addressing motivation is very, very important. So here are some strategies and tips for addressing motivation for people with Parkinson's. So being sure to work with Parkinson's specialists in speech or physical therapy. I've mentioned the Speak Out program. There's also the LSVT big or loud programs, as well as others. So seeing a Parkinson's specialized therapist is very important because they'll have that specialized knowledge. And then also setting a daily routine. So I mentioned the importance with that circle of intent of the daily home practice. This is true not just for speech and swallowing, but of course for body exercise. So we recommend 15 to 20 minutes a day for speech and swallowing, and then 20 to 30 minutes a day for the body exercises. And with this, joining groups can be so helpful. So boxing, dancing, therapy groups, other types of movement groups. And another component to motivation is engaging our community around us to support us. And so that can be involving family and friends. That can be in-person sessions or even joining in on online sessions, maybe joining in with family members in the daily YouTube practice, for example. They're honestly a lot of fun. Some of the cognitive exercises are, if you like brain games, then you'll like these exercises too. Another important thing is to, of course, look for resources. And one of those resources I mentioned is the Parkinson's Voice Project with those daily online practice sessions for YouTube. And of course, there are so many other online resources available, support groups, things like that, that can be engaged with online. So in closing, this is the closing of my formal presentation, but we're going to have time for questions. But Parkinson's is a movement disorder. It can be battled through moving and speaking with intent. And early intervention is critical. So starting therapy before symptoms get worse is very important, and maintaining that practice. So staying active, staying intentional, getting daily practice. This can help people with Parkinson's live better lives, and to live with intent. That's what we like to say. And you can learn more about the Speak Out program at parkinsonsvoiceproject.org. You can also find, of course, I'm trained in Speak Out therapy, but in case you're not in this region, you can also find other Speak Out providers on their website. And I have my website listed as well, thelovingspeechcenter.com. So those are a couple of resources for you to look more into. And with this, I just wanted to take a moment to thank the Festival of Science and all of their wonderful sponsors. This is an amazing event in the community. And so be sure to check out and support these sponsors. And thanks for joining us. Be sure to, we'll have time for questions here, but make sure to fill out the survey via the QR code here, scifest.org, or in the app. And be sure to find out more about other Festival of Science events. I really appreciate all of your time and attention, and we'll have some time here now for some questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Megan. That was fascinating. So for those of
Thank
you
you.
participating, we have two ways of asking questions. There is a Q&A feature where you can type your questions directly into Zoom. Otherwise, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you and you can ask Megan your question directly. So Melissa asks, are there different strategies needed for people with early onset PD?
I think, early onset PD, the difference there is age. So, the same strategies are needed for any type of Parkinson's, or Parkinson's-like conditions. And so that the same thing with the dopamine and intent. The key to maintaining and improving function is to have that daily practice. So the daily practice is so important, having both that exercise, physical exercise, as well as the speech exercises. Those are really the strategies for both people with PD and early onset PD. So thanks for that question, Melissa.
Okay, I had a question. Let me pull it up here. So obviously, I know there's a lot of research involving, new pharmaceutical treatments for PD. Um,
Hmm.
and I don't know if, mRNA has anything to do with, that in our technology, but I'm wondering sort of, as hopefully we find more and more pharmaceutical treatments, how you see this process kind of dovetail with new drug technologies.
Yeah, so I don't have a pharmacy background, so I don't have a strong knowledge of the drug treatments and what's going on in that realm. But there's always progress being made. There are also deep brain stimulation implants that have been impactful and helpful for people with managing Parkinson's, and also impact and improve speech as well. With the drug management, what I do know is that it depends on the dosages and the timing. And so working closely with a neurologist who can help to adjust those things with medication is super important. Um, and one of the things that can happen with medication is uh, they it has a certain life, and so at the end of the timing of that pill, somebody may have more symptoms, increased symptoms. So, in terms of scheduling speech and physical therapy, it's important to gain an understanding of how medication impacts a person so that we can time our sessions so that we're getting an optimal results and being able to work with the person based on their medication timing and needs. I do know that the wonderful scientists looking into these things are working on ways to reduce those symptoms um, and to improve the performance of the drugs that help to manage Parkinson's. So over time, I would expect that probably we might see improvements with the the symptoms that come at the with the drugs. Because sometimes the symptoms that we see are actually a result of the drugs themselves and not the Parkinson's. So as they hone in on this, hopefully things will improve. And again, I mentioned the deep brain stimulation devices that are being implanted, and those can greatly reduce people's need for the drugs and therefore the side effects from the drugs. So all the time, progress is being made in this area, and improvements are happening in all areas in terms of research for causes, treatments, drug treatments, implant treatments, and of course, and in my realm, the speaking and swallowing. So yeah, thanks for that question, Adam.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate it.
you. I didn't even anticipate, the timing of drugs and potential drug interactions. That's really interesting. So Rhonda has a question from the chat. They ask,
Yes.
does hearing loss contribute to challenges for those living with Parkinson's?
Yeah, so hearing loss contributes to challenges in general. So, for example, if somebody were to have age-related hearing loss, we know that, for example, not wearing hearing aids can result in decreased input from the world around us, and so can lead to increased issues with cognition and thinking skills, memory, things like that. If we're having trouble hearing it, it's harder to remember it. So there's that. So yes, studies have shown that hearing loss and um, not addressing hearing loss in the elderly can impact their um, quality of life and their cognition and thinking skills. The same is true for people with Parkinson's. So yes, it is incredibly important for people with Parkinson's to be wearing their hearing aids, and it can contribute or exacerbate some of those issues. Um, and, when we think about speech and our volume, one of the things we have to do is self monitor. So we have to be able to hear ourselves in order to know how loud are we talking. So if we're addressing speaking in someone with Parkinson's and we're trying to work on increasing their volume and they can't hear themselves, we've got a problem. So yes, hearing aids and addressing hearing in people with Parkinson's is definitely a key factor. I've worked with people with Parkinson's with hearing loss. And so one of those things is helping motivate them, again, that motivation component to wear their hearing aids, keep them charged, clean, and on is a big factor. So yes, I do bother people about hearing aids. Thank you for that question. It's a very important one.
Yeah, very good question. If anybody else has any more questions, that we have that Q&A open. Otherwise, I had just had one more, and that was, this intentional way of body movements. How does that relate to, what we're taught in school about like the autonomic and uh, is it sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system? Is that the same thing, or are we talking about? you're I guess what I'm trying to say is it sounds like you're trying to teach the brain how to rewire itself so that, you know, people can do what they're used to doing without thinking about it, right? Or with thinking about it, sorry, intention.
With thinking about it,
Right.
yes, with
Yeah.
intention. Yeah, yeah. So, can you kind of reframe your question for me?
So I know, like, so when we are taught in high school, like about the nervous system, right? I guess
Mm-hmm.
the question is there's the stuff that you don't think about, which I think is the autonomic part of things. So you're trying to, I guess my question is, you're trying to switch into that intentionality through this process, correct?
Yeah, so trying to so yeah, the I think you're referring to like the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps to control and regulate automatic movement,
Right.
which plays into this. And so the the program and the neuroscience behind it is that it bypasses the part of the brain that controls those automatic functions. And that includes, I mean, that even includes breathing. So a lot of times we get into breath control with people when we're working on speech because that automatic motor control has been impaired or impacted. So we have to think about breathing a little bit more intentionally, for example. So yes, that does, essentially kind of bypass that damaged um, portion of the brain in the parasympathetic nervous system, the basal ganglia, the extrapyramidal system that controls all of those automatic movements.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the questions and everybody's participation. And if there are any other questions that come up outside of the session, I'm happy to answer those. You can reach out to me via the website, lovingspeechcenter.com. And yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for all the important work that you do in our community and with our loved ones. Um, Thank you to all the participants who attended today. Again, last minute plug to please go ahead and if you have, 3 minutes to fill out the survey, we are very intentional about using these data to start programming next year's festival, which is already underway. So we have, if you have time, Megan, we have one more question, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
All right, Sally, let me unmute you. Uh, and now I think you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Maybe. Or maybe I need to press a button. Sally. Sally, it might be easier if you type your question in, because I'm not seeing how I can. Yeah. If you have an option to unmute yourself from your end, then try that. Otherwise, you might need to type it in. We'll wait while hopefully she types.
Mhm.
Hear me now?
So
Yep.
I have, oh, yes.
Okay, is there a way that we can get a copy of your slides so that we can
Oh,
digest again the information?
absolutely.
Yeah, so I'll step
Yeah,
in.
well,
This is being recorded on YouTube, Sally, so you'll be able to go to the Science Festival, the Festival of Science's website and look at the video on YouTube.
Okay.
And then you can pause at your leisure and write vigorous notes.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Good question. Okay, well, thank you all for coming. Again, Megan, thank you so very much.
thank
Well,
you. Appreciate it.
yeah, we'll see you guys all at one of the other 100+ events that we have scheduled for the festival this year. So thanks
Yes,
again.
go check them out.
Definitely.
Thank you all so much. Have
All
a
right,
good
thank you.
afternoon.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Huh.